Hello again, children. Today we're going to look again at rounding. In the last lesson, we looked at just a quick revision of rounding that we already know. Today we're going to look at reasoning with rounding that we already know. Again, there'll be a challenge for, can you spot, have I made a mistake? If you think I did, either in something that I've said or something that I've written down, let me know. Be careful, there may not be any mistakes. Take care. For today's lesson, again, you will need a pencil and some paper. Okay, so let's have a little practice. We're going to be rounding to the nearest 10, the nearest 100 and the nearest 1,000. The first two are quite straightforward. The last one, you have a choice of which number you want to start with, but your number must round to 4,770. Pause the video and have a go. How did you get on? Let's have a look. I chose 4,768 because I knew when I rounded that number, it rounded to 4,770. Which one did you choose? Okay, so our next challenge is to practice rounding to the nearest 1,000. Remember, when we round to the nearest 1,000, the 1,000 place is our target place, and the digit to the right of my target place is the one that counts. The other numbers in between at the end there are replaced with a 0, and usually the digit on the left of the target place stays the same. Pause the video and have a go. Okay, these were quite large numbers, but these are quite important sporting events around the world. And often, when we're looking at the figures of people who go to a sporting event, we often see them as rounded figures. Let's have a look at how these look when they're rounded. How did you get on? We're going to think about a little bit of reasoning with numbers that we know. So I'm going to do 2 with you, and then you've got 2 to do on your own. This says my number rounded to the nearest 10 is 70. What is my number? So there are some choices of numbers that you could make here. It doesn't say show all the possibilities. You just have to choose one of the numbers that is rounded to 70 when it's rounded to the nearest 10. And a good way to start this is to provide yourself with a number line. Let's put 70 in the middle of our number line today, because that's my target number, the number that I've got to get to. Well, other numbers could include 69, it could include 68, 68, it could include 67, it could include 66. Let's just tidy those up a little bit. Each of these numbers would round to 70 if I rounded it to the nearest 10. I'm just wondering, is there one more number? Is there another 60 number that would round to 70 when I rounded it to the nearest 10? Yeah, I think the number we're looking for is 65 would also round to 70 when rounded to the nearest 10. But there are some 70 numbers that would also round to 70 when rounded to the nearest 10. So 71 would round to 70, and 72 would round to 70, and 73 would round to 70, and 74 would round to 70, Nah, 75 wouldn't round to 70, would it? It would round to 80. So these are all the choices of numbers that we could have as the number originally up here. My number rounded to the nearest 10 is 70. So that's all of these numbers could be the number we chose. I just have to pick one and say what I want to say about it. So I might say the number is 68. I know this because the 6 in the tens place means the number would round to either 60 or 70. So I need to make that a little bit smaller. The 8 in the ones place means that I need to round the number up to the next 10. My number 68 must round to 70. So I've explained my thinking a little bit there. Let's try the next one. The girl here is saying, I'm thinking of an integer that is 370 when rounded to the nearest 10. An integer is a number. I'm thinking of a number that is 370 when rounded to the nearest 10. So I've got to think, I've got these sentences to complete, but I need to think about what those numbers are. So again, I'm going to draw myself a number line. And on my number line, I'm going to write 370 because that's the number I need to round to. And I need to round it to the nearest 10. So I'm going to count down in ones because I'm rounding to the nearest 10. So 369 would round to 370. 368 would round to 370. 367 would round to 370. 366 would round to 370. And I know that 365 would round to 370. I've got some 370 numbers as well. So 371 would round to the nearest 70. 372 would round to 370. 373 would round to 370. 374 would round to 370, but 375 would round to 380. So these are all the numbers that would round to 370. Let's think about the sentences now. It cannot be less than, it can't be less than 365 because 364 would round to 360. It cannot be more than 374 because 375 would round to 380. It must be between 365 and 370. And it might be, and you could choose any of those numbers, it might be this one. It might be this one because we don't have enough information to say specifically which one it is. Okay, so there are two for you to have a go at now. So what I want you to do is read the question, pause the video and have a go, and then we'll go through the answer. Now in this question, it asks for all all the possibilities. So you need to give all the possibilities of what the number could be. My number rounded to the nearest 10 is 240. Let's have a look at what all the possibilities might be. There we go. And on my number line, I started. Oh, I think I've made a mistake here, haven't I? This says 270. My number here says 240. So I think I might need to do some changing of this one. I might need to lose that one out of the way. Let's have another look at it. Let's do it together. 240. So I'm going to go up this time. 241, 242, 243, 244, but not 245 because we know that rounds to 250. So there's all my 240 numbers. And let's have a look at my next set. So 239, 238, 237, 236, and 235. These are all the possibilities. Let's check it. My number rounded to the nearest 10 is 240. Here is 240, 241, 42, 43, 44, all round to 240. 239, 38, 37, 36, 35, all round to 240. Those are all the possibilities. How did you get on? Let's look at the next one. Pause the video and have a go. Now, some of you might have had a go at doing it a little bit like this. And these are all the multiples of 10 that would round to the nearest 100 and give us 400. So that's some of the possibilities. But this one was a little bit trickier because if I just move that down a little bit, move my pink box out of the way, say I took, for example, 390, then all of these numbers would also round to 400. So for each jump of 10, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 more numbers that would round to 400. 398 rounds to 400. 394 rounds to 400. So that was the first group, but I'm wondering if you spotted any of these other numbers that rounded up to 400. Well done if you did. Okay, we've got another reasoning question here about rounding. It says, Mo makes a 4-digit number using the digit cards. Here they are. I've got 4-digit cards here. His number rounds to 9,100 to the nearest 100. What number does Mo make? So with these digit cards, you have to arrange them so that when you round it to the nearest 100, the number is 9,100. And when you've had a go at that, there's another one here to look at. Kim makes a different 4-digit number using the digit cards, so you can't use the same one as up here. A number rounds to 10,000 to the nearest 1,000. So when you round Kim's number to the nearest 1,000, it comes to 10,000. What was her number? And what does Kim's number round to the nearest 10? So you've got to think about Kim's number, and then you've got to round Kim's number to the nearest 10. Pause the video and have a go. Okay, let's look at the first one. Mo makes a 4-digit number using the digit cards. His number rounds to 9,100 to the nearest 100. So his number was 9,119. Kim makes a different 4-digit number and her number rounds to the nearest 10,000 when rounding to 1,000. Here comes Kim's number. Kim's number was 9,911. And when you round that number to the nearest 10, it's 9,910. How did you get on? Two other questions here. Let's look at the first one. Whitney says 2,567 to the nearest 100 is 2,500. Do you agree with Whitney? If you think she's right, tell me why you think she's right. If you don't agree with her, tell me why you think she's wrong. Pause the video and have a go. Okay, now if I were going to answer this question, I think I might look at a number line first of all. So the number is 2,567. So halfway is 2,550. That's sort of halfway. 2,567 belongs on this side of my number line. And if I look at my digits carefully, if I'm rounding to the nearest 100, it's that 5 digit. There's my target digit. And my 6 is greater than 5. So it changes my 5 to 6. So for Whitney, this is 2,567 rounded to the nearest 100. Let's have a look at the next one. Teddy says 4,725 to the nearest 1,000 is 5,025. He's made a mistake. Can you explain what it is? Pause the video and have a think. Okay, now if I want to round 4,725, I'm either going to round it down to 4,000 or I'm going to round it up to 5,000. And that 4 is my target place, and it's the 7 that's going to help me decide. The 7 is bigger than 5, so that means it's further down my number line here. So 4,725 rounds to 5,000. So Teddy got that little bit right, but he forgot to replace the digits in the tens and the ones with zeros. You see there, he's forgotten to replace the digits in the tens and the ones with zeros. Sometimes we make that mistake. One more reasoning question for you today, children. My number rounded to the nearest 10 is 1,150. Rounded to the nearest 100, it is 1,200. And rounded to the nearest 1,000, it is 1,000. What could Jack's number be? And can you find all the possibilities? Pause the video and have a go. Okay, let's have a look. What could Jack's number be? So, my number rounded to the nearest 10 is 1,150. So I've put 1,150 in the middle of my number line, and I've thought about all the numbers in between, and I've counted in ones because it's rounded to the nearest 10. So it could be any of those numbers. And it says rounded to the nearest 100, it's 1,200. So now I can start crossing them off because I know that these numbers are too small to round to 1,200. They would round to 1,100. These are the numbers that would round to 1,200. And it says rounded to the nearest 1,000, it's 1,000. So if I round these to the nearest 1,000, yeah, these would all be 1,000. There's my ones place, there's my thousands place, and there's only a 1 in that digit there. So all of these numbers are the possible numbers that Jack could have been thinking of. I hope you got them. Okay, so for the rest of today's lesson, what I want you to do is, using this address, I want you to find this game. It's on the Top Marks website. Now, you can choose with this game. So you can choose whether you want a number line or no number line, and you can choose to practice your rounding. I'm going to have a look at this one here but I'm going to have the challenge of no number line. Okay, so I've got a number here, 4,146, and I need to round it to the nearest hundred. So I'm going to look at the hundreds place because I'm rounding to the hundred, and I'm going to look at the digit next to it, the 4. It's going to make that hundred stay the same. So I think this is the rocket that we need. If we look at the next one, 582 rounded to the nearest hundred. So there's my hundreds place, and there's the 8. So the 8 tells me that the 5 needs to round up to 600. So this is a game you can play. You've got lots of options. You can play it using smaller numbers, rounding only to the nearest 10. You can play it with a number line, larger numbers rounded to the nearest 10. That might help out a little bit. So 844 rounded to the nearest 10. It looks like it rounds down to this one here. So I'm going to find it. So you've got lots of options here to practice your rounding. So for the rest of today's lesson, that's what I'd like to do. And I'll speak to you again tomorrow.